Today, we're going to talk about the tissues of the hand. Without further ado, let's dive right in. The first tissue that we are going to look at is what protects the other tissues, the epithelial tissues.
The hand is mainly composed of stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, which is indicated in the picture as the purple stained layer. The stratified squamous epithelium is consisted of multiple layers with formation of keratinized tissue involving the loss of cell viability. The cells closest to the basement membrane undergo mitosis and form the proliferative population. These cells then differentiate where they secrete glycolipids that fill interstitial spaces and isolate themselves. Eventually, cell death is initiated by nuclear disintegration. As such, the upper layers of skin in our hands are actually made up of dead cells, which occasionally slough off as they are replaced with the new ones. The structural features of tissues play three important roles. One is to protect from physical abrasion as a result of their exposure to the external environment. If you notice, the palms of our hands actually seem to be much more rigid and firm than the skin on the other side of our hands. This is due to the thickness of the layers, due to the stratum lucidum, which is found one layer below the stratum corneum, the outermost layer where the cells slough off. This is important as our palms are more susceptible to abrasion and friction by handling objects in day-to-day tasks. The other roles of the stratified squamous epithelium is to fend off from infection and to prevent water loss resulting from heat exposure that leads to evaporation.
Imagine yourself having no hands, or imagine yourself having hands but you cannot control them both anyway. Luckily, both aren't the case. This explains the ingenuity of the human body. So what exactly is the type of muscular tissue present in hands? It is the skeletal muscle tissue. So this type of tissue is attached to the bones and skin, which makes it as an ideal tissue to control locomotion or movement. And because it can be consciously controlled, skeletal muscles are also called as voluntary muscles. Specifically, each muscle fiber cell is 100 micrometer in diameter and up to 30 centimeters in length, which explains its cylindrical, tubular, or elongated shape. Under microscope, the skeletal muscle tissue appears as striated or stripped. But the more interesting question is, how does this muscle tissue contribute to how the hands is able to do all sorts of movements? So one thing we need to remember is that cell-to-cell communication occurs via action potential, which occurs at the plasma membrane of the muscle cell, more known as sarcolemma. So nerve impulses transmitted from the nervous system can either cause this tissue to contract or relax. Digging deeper down, within a skeletal muscle cell, there are hundreds to thousands of parallel cylindrical structures of myofibrils of approximately 1.2 micrometer in diameter that run the entire length of a muscle fiber. So, if the myofibrils contract, the sarcolemma attached to their ends also contract. Thus, the whole muscle follows. But what exactly happens in the molecular level? Specifically, this is due to the regular arrangement of the globular proteins actin and myosin, which is also responsible for the striated appearance. Actin is a globular contractile protein that interacts with myosin for muscle contraction. Specifically, actin together with accessory proteins such as tropomyosin comprise the thin filament attached in the junction point or Z-line of the sarcomere, while myosin is the thick filament. In the relaxed state, the tropomyosin orients itself to mask the binding site in the actin to prevent the myosin cross-bridge to interact with the actin in the binding site. Conversely, in the contracted state, the tropomyosin orients itself to allow an effective interaction between myosin and actin to take place. So due to its chemical features and structural components, skeletal muscle tissue in hands allow the hands to perform all sorts of movement concerning contraction and relaxation or a combination of both.
The next tissue that we're going to talk about allows us to feel and manipulate our hands, the nervous tissue.
As shown in the figure, nervous tissue is composed of neurons and the supporting cells called neuroglia or glial cells. Its main purpose is the coordination of the bodily functions as it is generally found in the brain, spinal cord, and the nerves. As stated, glial cells support the activity of the neurons through several functions. First, by providing nutrients through the binding of blood vessels to neurons, binding of neurons together, and for some specialist phagocytic cells, the protection from bacterial infection. Neurons communicate through the use of electrical nerve impulses to pass information necessary for it to function. Its general structure is shown in the next slide. Depicted in the figure is a neuron. These cells have three principal parts: the dendrites, the cell body, and the axon. The main part of the cell that carries the general functions of the neuron is the cell body, which is shown on the left side of the figure. Next is the dendrites, which are extensions or processes of the cytoplasm that carry impulses to the cell body. And lastly, we have the axon, which are extensions or processes which carry the impulses away from the cell body, as shown in the center of the figure. So the arrow on the bottom of the figure shows the direction of the electrical impulse travel, which is away from the cell body towards the axon terminal. Now for the hand, there are three main nerves present, as shown in the figure. First is the ulnar nerve, which crosses the wrist through an area called Guyon's canal and branches to provide sensation to the little finger and half of the ring finger. The second nerve is the median nerve, which crosses the wrist through a tunnel called the carpal tunnel, and the median nerve provides sensation to the palm, thumb, index finger, middle finger, and part of the ring finger. Lastly, we have the radial nerve, which runs down the thumb side of the forearm and provides sensation to the back of the hand, from the thumb to the middle finger.
Lastly, we are going to talk about the tissue that allows all these tissues to be together, the connective tissues. As we all know, the hand is one of the most complex body part of the human body. It contains connective tissues including fibrous connective tissue, loose connective tissue, cartilage, bone, adipose tissue, and the blood. Due to the limited amount of time, we will focus more on the important connective tissues which make the hand very special and allow us for intricate and precise movements. This includes the bone, cartilage, and ligaments. The hand contains 27 bones that can be divided into three groups: the 8 carpal bones located in the wrist, the 5 metacarpal bones which support the finger, and the 14 phalanxes bone that make up the finger. Each finger contains 3 bones: distal, middle, and proximal, except for the thumb which lacks the middle phalanges. What holds the bones and tissues of the hand together? These are the cartilage, joints, and ligaments, and we can even include tendons, but we won't focus on that last one too much. Metacarpophalangeal joints connect the phalanxes and metacarpal bones, while interphalangeal joints join the bones of the fingers. Joints are covered at the end with articular cartilage that absorbs shock and facilitate movement. Collateral ligaments are tough tissues that connect bones together that prevents abnormal sideways bendings of joints. The strongest ligament in the hand is the volar plate, which prevents the overbending of hand backwards.
In relation to the four aforementioned tissues, let us move on to some diseases associated with such tissues. Some images may unsettle some individuals. One common disease involved with the epithelial tissue is hyperkeratosis. It is described as a thickening of epithelial structures in the skin, resulting from the proliferation of keratinocytes. Hyperkeratosis can stem genetically or from physical irritation. On another note, myotonic dystrophy is a muscular disease characterized by muscle wasting and weakness. Myotonic dystrophy type 1, or Steiner's disease, affects the neck, lower arms, and lower legs. Steiner's disease stems from a mutation in the myotonic dystrophy protein kinase gene. The next two diseases are probably ones you have heard of before. Arthritis is a disease involving the connective tissues. It is characterized as a swelling and tenderness of several joints. The condition typically worsens with age and is caused by multiple factors, including genetics, physical health, and injury, to name a few. Lastly, carpal tunnel syndrome is a disease associated with the median nerve. It occurs when the median nerve is compressed, and when left untreated, can lead to lack of coordination between the fingers and the thumb.
That's all. See you again next time.